It just cut me off. I didn't expect that. Hopefully you're seeing this video too. Anyway, the same objections to the Harry Potter world I would then lay on X-Men, because, or I would say that you would have to object to both evenly. It's just a realm in which to tell a story. And this is my opinion. And like I said, I have full respect for those who disagree with me. I have full respect for those who in their conscience don't want to go near it. And I'm not telling you to go near it if that's where you are, or if your parents have told you not to go near it. So don't hear me say that. Don't hear me say that you should go do it, because I'm not. But I do think it's a very different thing. And if there were any part of that book, those books, where you got the sense that it was an approval of demonic power or demonic influences, or an approval of seeking after power apart from God, or in some evil way, then I wouldn't go near them either. But that's really not the way the book is. So, and this is where I say it's a lot like the X-Men, and I think it was Eli who brought it up, that the struggle between Xavier and Magneto, Professor X and Magneto in X-Men, is really similar to the battle between Dumbledore and Harry Potter on one side, and Voldemort and his followers on the other side in the Harry Potter books. Which is, there's a small group of people who have more power than everybody else. And there are those who would then use it for good, and there are those who would use it for evil. So the X-Men use their mutant powers for good, and Magneto and his followers use their mutant powers for evil. Well, in the Harry Potter world, there are people who are born with magic, and so they sort of sequestered themselves from the real world, and they sort of live in their own world together. And there are those who use their magic for good, and there are those who use their magic for evil. And all of the evil magic is truly wicked evil magic, because some of it can only be accomplished through incredibly wicked acts like murder and violence toward others. So in that sense, that's why I find it a very helpful story, and that's why I want my kids to read it, because it is, again, the reflection of the whole story of good versus evil. The reflection of, slaying the dragon, getting the girl, in the sense that in that world there are people who want to use their magical abilities. They want to use their magic for selfishness, and that's Voldemort. That's who Voldemort is. And Voldemort is a whole heck of a lot like Sauron in Lord of the Rings. A whole heck of a lot like him. And honestly, in many ways, Magneto's really a nicer guy than Voldemort is, to be honest. But Voldemort is this power-hungry, evil man who wants to live forever, and he wants to set himself up as king, and he wants everyone to worship him. He is about as close to a Satan figure as you can get. And in the books, you've got Dumbledore, who's there, who's the main person who fights, and he's your Gandalf type character, but he's also sort of your almost like a godlike figure, that he just swoops in from time to time and gives wisdom and direction. I would say probably, because this is what I thought was interesting, Tolkien identified Gandalf like an angel, and there's a little bit of that makes sense, that the angels show up in the biblical story to help out at particular times, but they're not always there, and that's true of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, which we'll deal with on our last class. But also true of Dumbledore. He's not always there, but he sort of lends guidance and direction when he is there. And then you've got Harry Potter, who's the hero of the story, right? Who comes from humble, lowly beginnings, who and then is destined for this fight against evil. So as you can see, you're getting these ideas of who Jesus was. Jesus, lowly beginnings, destined to fight the darkness, and destined to ultimately to conquer and to win. And so what I love about the Harry Potter stories, and what I would love for you to get from them, if you are a person who has followed them, is that there are always ways that the power and the abilities and the talents and the intelligence and the strength that God has given us, that we can always use for selfishness and for evil, or we can use it for good. And one of the strong sort of overarching ideas in Harry Potter is that there's no magic more powerful than love. And I would say that is certainly true. What's more powerful in this world, and Jesus proved this, what's more powerful than intelligence, what's more powerful than strength, what's more powerful than wisdom, what's more powerful than some cool ability, is love. That's where actually Paul roots this whole conversation in the letter to the Corinthians, That's 1 Corinthians chapters 12 through 14, and he's talking about the spiritual gifts. So these are gifts that the Spirit has given us, much like magic or mutant abilities or whatever. And Paul is critiquing them because they want to use their gifts for evil, not for evil, but for selfish purposes. Necessarily, which is evil, but not necessarily for evil, but they want to be selfish about it, and they want to lord over one another, and they want to be more important, than everybody else. Right, totally just lost my train of thought. Oh, and then in the middle of it, Paul injects this whole, love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast. That whole thing is not about a wedding day, and it has really nothing to do with weddings at all. It has to do with, if we have spiritual gifts, we have these spiritual abilities, these gifts that are given by the Spirit, and we use them, but we don't have love, and we completely miss the point, and we're completely worthless. Love is truly the most powerful magic there is, so to speak. And so I love that about the Harry Potter books. I love the humility of Harry. Not that Harry's perfect by any means, because he's not. But Harry is a pretty extraordinary individual, but most of it has happened to him. And he doesn't sit around and brag most of the time about all of the amazing things he's done or how cool he is, but wants to live a quiet life. And so there's a lot to be respected about that. And ultimately, at the end of the books, Harry goes and willingly sacrifices himself and willingly goes to die in order to defeat Voldemort. I mean, again, spoilers here, but it doesn't take, and he doesn't really die, but he goes and he goes to die and thinks he's going to die when it's finished. That the only way that Voldemort can be destroyed is if he dies first. If you don't see Jesus in that, then somehow you've seen the stories or seen the movies or read the books, then you completely missed it. That is what Jesus did for us. He went and faced death because he knew that the only way to secure a future for all of us was for him to go and die. Except he's a better Harry, because Harry was just a human, and Harry was selfish, and Harry was, while he was good, he was also petty and angry, selfishly angry, and all these other things. But Jesus is a better Harry because Jesus did what Harry did. He went and willingly faced death for the sake of others. But he did it fully for us, and fully out of love for us, and fully to secure good for us forever. And he walked into it his whole life knowing what was coming. Harry didn't realize until the very, 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 very end what that meant for him. Though he thought death might be a possibility, he didn't know until the end that's what it was going to be. But Jesus, his whole life, marched toward death knowing it was what was coming. And even on, the night before he was crucified, was praying, Father, if it's your will, or Father, please take this away from me. Take this cup of your wrath away from me. But not what I will, but what you will. He was saying, if there could be another way, I wish that were the case, but I know there's not, and I'm going on anyway. So Harry and his sacrifice and his love for his friends and love for people in general, he reminds us of Jesus and points us to him. So that's what I like about the Harry Potter stories. Just that they're an enjoyable set of books anyway, but there's this constant theme. Harry is alive because his parents sacrificed themselves for him, and all along the way there were people who have died over and over again to sacrifice themselves, either for the good of others or specifically for Harry. And so what I love is this constant theme of love, and love displayed in self-sacrifice. That is Jesus in a nutshell. And J.K. Rowling is not a Christian and would never claim to be, but she is teaching Christian truths in her book. And I think it was Isaac in our last class who pointed out how all these stories get so close to seeing the finish line, so close to seeing the real thing, so close to just getting it, but they never want to go to Jesus, and so ultimately they miss it. And so I look at Harry Potter just like every other story, like the Marvel movies, or like Star Wars, or what else were we talking? I mean, Spider-Man and X-Men, all of those, and I love those stories, but they always fall short. And it's the same with Harry Potter. There's a lot of love and a lot of self-sacrifice, a lot of courage, a lot of bravery, a lot of willingness to stand up and face evil and darkness, even when it's hard. And those are all amazing things, but they always fall short of Jesus. And so in this class, again, I always point this out because I want you to see these stories and I want you to love these stories, but I want you to know these stories are never as good as the real hero that we've got. The real hero that is right there reigning in heaven, that we can worship anytime, that we have access to, that his spirit lives inside us if we believe in him. like the better Harry, the better Iron Man, the better Thor, the better Hulk, the better Professor X, the better Obi-Wan, or the better Anakin, whoever is Jesus, and he's right there for all of us. And it's easy to love these stories and love these movies or the books or characters or whatever and miss Jesus. And I don't want any of you to miss Jesus. And I don't want to miss Jesus. So that's what this class is for. So if you have some time to discuss, you could take a few minutes to just talk about if you all just want to have an open debate about whether the Harry Potter books, whether Mr. Bell is evil for watching Harry Potter and reading Harry Potter, you could do that. But also just where you see that self-sacrifice, because I still think it's a core thought in Harry Potter is self-sacrifice, sacrifice for others. So where do you see that at work? What other stories do you see that in? And where have you seen that in your own life? Where have you seen people, your mom, your dad, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, whoever, that have been willing to sacrifice out of love for you or for those around them? Okay? Thanks for listening or watching, whatever you're doing, and I'll see you next week.